Hello. Hi, everybody. Tashdale. And like always, a very warm welcome to now the final, the concluding session of our weekly virtual teachings by Venerable Geshe Lhakdor. And if I have to number the session, it's the 24th session. So this means, including this session, we have spent together 24 beautiful weeks of great learnings, great sharing, and great fortune, really. So as we open ourselves up to receive these precious teachings on this 24th session, I hope we all prepare our minds with gratitude and immense sense of rejoice. So thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. And thank you so much, Geshe-la, for making this all possible. With that, please guide us, please help us.
Yeah, so today we have the concluding session and concluding chapter. It was a wonderful opportunity, not only for you, but especially for me, because unless you are asked to do something, especially spiritual practice, whether it's the teacher or the student, unless somebody is poking or provoking you, then you tend to defer your practice thinking, I'll do it tomorrow, day after tomorrow, So I managed to read this whole text because of your interest and the foundation's request. So I rejoice over that. So today we are reading 23rd chapter, which is called The Two Examinations, as is translated in the root text. When among many, watch your words. When remaining alone, watch your mind. So that's basically saying examining or watching your words, or the two examinations are examining your speech or examining your mind, or watching your words or watching your mind. Normally, when we do any Buddhist practice, we are, we do it through the three gateways, that is body, speech, and mind. Either you do it physically or verbally or mentally. That's not just the positive activities, but also the negative activities. The only venue or gateway through which we do good things and bad things is only these three outlets: body, speech, and mind. So therefore, it is extremely important to ensure that you are able to restrain your body, speech, and mind from engaging in negative deeds, right? And out of the three, the most important is your mind, because it is the mind, which I normally call it the boss, which tells the body and speech to act in different ways, depending upon whether the mind is positive or negative. If the mind is negative, which basically means if the mind is influenced by the three negative emotions, three poisons, hatred, attachment, and ignorance, then what you express physically, what you say verbally will also be negative, influenced by those negative emotions. Contrarily, if your mind is influenced by the absence of these three poisons, then your speech, what you do with your body and what you say and what you think will also be positive. So for easier understanding, I am remembering what His Holiness said once when he was giving the teaching, by giving a wonderful example by saying that how the mind, out of the three, the mind is the important one. And he said, for example, if you are, says, circumambulating or going around the temple, so physically you are going around the temple, which looks very nice. And then verbally also you may be reciting something, mumbling something, yeah, or fumbling something, whatever. you may be saying something. But God knows what is going on in your mind, right? So therefore, normally, the doing spiritual practice by one's mind is the most difficult thing. And as ordinary beings, we tend to do those things which are appreciated by others, which are seen by others. your physical activities, like going around the temple or doing prostration, this is something that other people can see. So therefore you feel like doing it. You want to make a, I mean, whether you consciously know it or not, but you have deep down this, wish to display whatever you're doing, showing to other people, yes, so good, I'm so good, I'm doing this prostration, I'm going around the temple, things like that. And you may be reciting some mantra. But as I said, even with this, seemingly physical and mental positive practices, what is really going on in your mind is not sure. And a clear example that kind of Dharma practice is not genuine Dharma practice is that even when physically you're doing something positive, verbally you're doing something positive, but mentally you can engage in many negative thoughts. So clearly showing that it is not sure whether your physical and verbal activities will become a spiritual practice or not, right? For example, His Holiness gives this wonderful example. For example, you may be reciting the famous Tibetan mantra Om Mani Padme Hum, right? So in the beginning, you may be saying Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum. And then normally also we don't pronounce it, properly. Then we might say Mani Padme, Mani Padme, Mani Padme, Mani Padme, Mani Padme, like that. And then gradually your mind may be actually thinking not about the mantra Om Mani Padme Hum, but maybe thinking about the money. So the word chanting Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum gradually might become money, 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 money. So, and then like similarly, physically, you may be doing something. Mentally, you can think all the nasty things, of competition, of jealousy, and of bullying other people, things like that. So I just today was chatting with somebody, and he said sometimes, our so-called Dharma practice becomes another lifestyle, and we hardly think about it. So there is a story of a person who was, moving this prayer wheel. And then there were other people near him who were talking about killing anyone. So this man, his mind was actually thinking and joining these people who were planning to kill the animal. So with this prayer wheel, he said, kill that one, pointing towards a particular animal. He said, kill that one is better. So he's supposed to be doing some practice, but mentally he's not into that practice, right? So, but if you're somebody who is mentally thinking about love and compassion, then having influenced by this more powerful energy mind, you cannot kick a dog when your mind is thinking about compassion. You cannot say nasty things when your mind is really thinking about compassion. So therefore, mind, whatever you do, not just spiritual Buddhist practice, but whatever you do, if your mind is there, if you're fully alert, aware, and concentrated, then whatever you do, you can achieve much quicker, and you will also enjoy it because your mind is involved in it. And so long as if you don't do that, but if you simply follow the social habits and customs and continue doing the so-called Buddhist practice because your parents have been doing, or your country is doing, and some of the lamas are saying, so without just thinking, just as we lead many different lifestyles, so that will become another, lifestyle. It will have not much impact, right? So therefore, it is extremely, extremely important to understand the essence of the Dharma teaching and ensure that we are able to grasp the heart of the teaching and make it relevant in one's life, right? I had repeatedly given the example that if you are thirsty, you need to drink water, but not necessarily the whole ocean, right? We don't have the time to read all the Holy Scriptures, and that is also not that important. What is important is you catch the essence of the Buddha's teaching. Catch the essence. There is always an essence, like the development of wisdom and compassion is the essence. Like development of morality and understanding of interdependent origination is essence. Like helping others, not harming others is essence. So it's so easy to understand in a nutshell, you see. So do that. Now, if you practice that, everything will be there. If you don't practice that, then just we keep on, talking about various topics on Dharma, that this teacher said that, this teacher said that, His Holiness said that. There's a story of somebody who was a cowherd or shepherd. So every morning he has to take this flock of sheep or cow to the grassland. So every morning, because he is the servant, the herdsman, he has to count all the cows or sheep. And then in the evening also, when returning home, he has also to count to make sure that none of them are killed or lost. So when this has been observed by someone, he went to this person and said, you must be very rich. You own all this sheep and cow, which you count in the morning, which you count in the night. Then he said, no, I'm just a servant. I don't have even a single sheep or single cow. I'm just servant. So therefore I need to count them. So like that, if we become like that, just count different topics of the teaching. And then if you really check what you have with you, if you say I have nothing, it's very, very easy to become like that. Very easy to become like that, because normally we have this habit, when we know the meaning of some word, then we start thinking, I have that quality, I have that experience, I have that knowledge. No. Even when your Lama has asked you to cultivate bodhicitta for a moment, and then you close your eyes and think about it, you feel good, and you almost think that you've cultivated bodhicitta. I mean, that's not so easy like that, you see, right? It's not so easy that. But as I said earlier, there are two things you need to remember. One, because of our very strongly ingrained negative habit, it is difficult to undo that habit and get habituated with the positive things. So in that sense, it is difficult. But difficult does not mean that it is impossible. If you really catch the essence of the teaching and practice it, you can. The only problem is we are not. I mean, I was reading one text which says that even if you really spend a part of the time that you are spending so much on many other things, mostly less important and in many cases total nonsense, you spend so much of your life and time on those things. And then this teacher says, even if you spend a part of those time and regularly do some practice, you can see the difference, how much change it will bring about. So that clearly shows that we are not able to cultivate these qualities because we are not doing it. We are not spending time to do it, right? So how can you hope to cultivate all these things without making any effort? When we talk about removing the negative emotions, don't think that negative emotions will go away there because they are impermanent. Anything impermanent that will change and go away, right? So negative emotions will just by the passage of time it will go away. It's not like that, because the continuity of the negative emotions, the imprints and habits are if not challenged, it will continue to arise in you, because your mind is a fertile ground for these negative emotions, right? So therefore we need to make special effort. In addition to the possibilities of change, which is the natural process, we also need to contribute our part, making the effort and fight against these negative emotions and lessen it. So if we do that, it is possible. As I said the other day, that when you cultivate, for example, wisdom, which really sees the root of problem, ignorance, then it's really like lightening a light in a room which has been kept dark for hundreds of years. The darkness has been there in that room for hundreds of years, but just by putting on that light, the 100 years accumulated darkness goes away. So that example is also there, meaning that if you are really able to cultivate that wisdom, I mean, there's a big point there, because many of the mistakes and confusions that we have, that we do, is based on that ignorance. And once you remove that ignorance and sees the truth and the reality is there, then many of the things towards which you are clinging, you're attached, all this will, you will see all this as totally nonsense, totally meaningless. And I had given you this example earlier, citing the quotation from 37 Bodhisattva practices. I had given you this example of rainbow, which looks very beautiful out there. But because the rainbow is just ephemeral and no essence, nothing, and then just because of the appearance of having many colors, if you go there and try to catch the rainbow, you will not be able to do it. So many of us know that. Therefore, we never go to catch the rainbow because we understand that. So similarly, trying to grasp onto many of the things where we normally get stuck, if you understand all these things as a rainbow, and that's not easy. You need to spend some time to think why all these things are like rainbow. So that's why we talk about having no independent existence, no intrinsic existence, and so forth. Once you truly, truly understand that, or even get a glimpse of it, then at least that the tight grasping and craving towards this object will be loosened. And that itself will be almost like giving you a great freedom, right? Because there's nothing to hold on to, no meaning. It's like holding on to a dream. And I had earlier cited this example of mother getting the dream of a birth of a child and then the same child dying. Because the child was born, she was happy and laughing in the dream. Because the child is dead, she was crying and having a lot of suffering. But because she was sleeping, she was not awake. But as soon as she woke up, she realized with great relief that, oh, this is just a dream. So it's like that. It's like that. So therefore, what we need to do is to make some effort to understand those undeniable truth, reality, starting from suffering, then impermanence and things like that. Therefore, many texts decide that it is by understanding suffering you will understand impermanence. It's by understanding impermanence you will understand selflessness. So therefore, in the four seals and in the four aspects of the truth of suffering, when we talk about suffering, impermanence, so forth, we are not just talking about impermanence of a rock or a mountain. We are primarily talking about our own nature. Our own nature. In our own nature, we have all these different kinds of sufferings, right? And once you understand that nature of suffering, then through that way you will also be able to see that this kind of suffering is there because it is conditioned by the negative emotions and contaminated actions, right? And the life itself is impermanent. And once you understand this person who is suffering has no enduring entity or reality and is impermanent, and then from that understanding, you will also be able to see, therefore, the person has no inherent independent existence. So one understanding of one. So therefore, start, from the grosser level, understand the grosser level of impermanence, then gradually more subtle level of impermanence, then the subtlest level of impermanence, like that. That makes sense. Now, for example, when we talk about grosser impermanence, the example given is like a house collapsing, which even our naked eye can see it. And this, in those of us who listen to the news or live in big cities, we always see that somewhere a house has collapsed and somebody has died. This grosser level of impermanence we can understand through that. Why this grosser level of impermanence is happening? Because underneath, subtle impermanent changes are going on, right? So therefore, by understanding the grosser level of impermanence, you can gradually be able to understand the subtler changes. And when we go to the subtle changes, it's really almost like imperceptible subtle changes that are going on. I normally say this. The life itself everything is in a flux. The so-called life is really nothing but bubbling energy, right? It's bubbling. It has always been compared to water bubble and right? So that's important. So therefore, anyway, now to come back to this chapter, examining the two, that is examining one's speech and examining. So I was saying that we need to make sure that our, body, speech, and mind are not motivated and polluted by the three poisons, the negative emotions. So here in this case, out of the three, you should primarily examine your speech and then examine your mind. Now, speech is something, human beings, they have this very special capacity of communicating to each other, unlike cows or dogs. The dogs can say, wow, wow, wow. I don't know, that has so many different meanings. I don't know. Cow also can say, oh, meow or whatever, but I don't know what kind of different meanings are there. Not much. But in the case of a human being, we have such a sophisticated language and capacity to say so many things. Just by one word, you can make others very happy. Just by another word, you can make others completely miserable. Why? Because people who are listening to us, they're ordinary people. Their minds are not trained. They are very sensitive, very emotional, you see. Even the so-called grown-up people are, at the core, is really like this small innocent children, you see. If you give them a lollipop, they'll be very happy, If you take it away, they'll be very sad. We are all like that, you see. And that we all know based on our experience. So we need to be very careful with the words that we use. Right? So therefore, now to read from the text, Domtamba now finally says, my sublime teacher, please listen to me. It's very, very difficult to understand in a nutshell this treatise, which actually summarizes many extensive teachings. So therefore, can you please now give me a profound practice which summarizes all those? I mean, you can see, it's not that Domtamba is confused or things like that. Domtamba is really asking for our sake. Because right in the beginning, on several occasions, you remember the both Atisha and Domtamba, they were talking to each other that let us speak in a language that everybody can understand. Let us not make Dharma very complicated, things like that. So the teaching itself was basically very easy to understand. Of course, we can go deeper and deeper, but the teaching itself is not that difficult to understand, at least the wordings. Now he's saying that even that is now difficult. So can you now summarize it? That's what I was saying, if you're able to just take some of the essential points, it will really change your life. So there must be something to hold on to, not in the sense of seeing them as independent existence, but to keep something in the mind, something that will inspire you, something that will provoke you, something that will make you go and do things, So that's very important. So therefore he's saying that now can you please give us a profound practice which summarizes everything. Then now look at the answer, Then Atisha says, talking too much is the cause of sin. Talking too much is cause of negative deeds. Having great distraction is the cause of negative deeds. Words of praise, words of defamation, talking pleasantly or unpleasantly, speaking wrongly or even speaking honestly, speaking directly or indirectly, or by defaming, praising somebody, or by praising, defaming something. So there's so many, things that you can do with the language, you see. For example, you can make a sarcastic remark to somebody who you really want to belittle, but you say, oh, you're so great, you're so intelligent, So that is like by praising, it's actually bringing that person down. So there's so many ways of speaking. And then sarcastic remarks and saying things out of arrogance. And then engaging in idle gossiping because of afflictive emotions. Then talking about subjects that would provoke attachment, hatred. So many of the so-called novels, if you read them, they will provoke attachment in you or hatred, things like that. And then talking about ignorance and jealousy and talking about arrogance. Then the words of deception and words that you use while playing, words through which you show that you are extremely clever or you're extremely stupid, or words which would bring laughter among people, or words that you can use to bring down great leaders, or ordinary talking, and words which would say kill or hate, or digging the fault of other people, or words of flattering others, and self-promotion, and words about business, and words expressing different aspirations, words about war and conflict and fighting, words about talking about masculinity and things like that. So all these words, Atisha is saying this, all these words that you are using, it may look small, but it might induce great afflictive emotions. Because sentient beings, they are basically the product of negative emotions. And therefore, as ordinary beings, they have this negative emotions like jealousy and anger as a kind of inborn quality, right? So therefore, you need to be very careful when you speak to others. For example, while you are praising somebody, it may be provoking other people. It might make other people angry. Right? If you don't be very careful, if you're speaking like with the presence of 5-6 people, if you're praising one, it might bring unhappiness in the mind of others, right? So and through that, when you praise somebody and someone else gets angry, and then because of that anger, the foundation of virtuous practice is destroyed. And then the words that through which you give bad names to other people, or making sarcastic remarks, right? Or you may be just for one praise you might receive 100 defamations. So the fault of wrong speech is that by using wrong speech, you will be inviting enemies. You will be inviting enemies. And the fault of speech is that by using wrong speech, you will lose many of your friends and relatives. And to make a long story short, at the end of the day, the fault of speech is that it is said that if you lie or engage in gossiping, things like that, then in the future lives, your tongue itself will be used as a field, and on which cultivation will be done, things like that. So even forget about the wrong use of word. Even if you use very soft speech, right? But if you speak too much, then depending upon the intonation, right? Again, it will hurt others. Because even if you are praising somebody, that person may not receive that praise in a good sense, but he might take it as a kind of personal attack. So therefore, just by praising, you might make somebody as your enemy. And if you praise somebody who is already negative and bad, then that would again, of course, provoke that person. And if somebody is already good, even if you praise, they'll not be happy because they don't want that kind of praise. So therefore, it is always better not to speak too much. Because at the end, with use of wrong speech, there will be like fighting, physical fighting between two, and it could even cost one's life. And the result will be to be born in a negative state of existence. So therefore, it is intelligent, it is important to guard one's speech. And I've said many times that nature has given us 2 ears, 2 eyes, only one mouth. So that means you should you should listen more, see more, and speak less. And His Holiness the Dalai Lama has repeatedly said, if you speak more, you will not learn much. But if you listen more, you will learn many things from other people. Right? Many of us, and I belong to that category, many of us don't have this patience to learn listen patiently to others. But before even hard, even before somebody finishes the sentence, you just say, oh, no. You start speaking, you see. So, right? So therefore, there is a Tibetan saying which says, this is a Tibetan saying, which means, Marmar, I don't know how good I'm going to translate this. This reddish tongue, if you don't take care of it, then this roundish head might get beating. Okay, right? And so therefore, the speech that we use, even though it is not sharp like a blade, but when you use wrong speech towards somebody, it can chop other people's heart into pieces. Meaning right? So we should be very careful. As Nagarjuna in his letter to the friend, he says, if possible, your speech should be like honey. If not, at least it should be like a flower. But it should not definitely be not like a filth. Some people, whenever they say something, it just makes everybody unhappy. So therefore, you will notice some people who are so talkative and so hurting that as soon as they see these people, they'll just walk away, go away from that person. You see. And then there are others who speak so softly, so kindly, so nicely. They listen to others. And I've been observing this in the library itself. Although I'm giving more teachings than many of the staffs here, but I've noticed many of them are like much more softer, much more kind, much more gentle than me. You see, so you need to learn from them. They are the real teachers. You see, not one like me who is just talking. You see, really, because every person has different habits, different tendencies, die-hard habits. It's difficult to get rid of those habits, but it's important to understand your own habit and then change the negative ones into the positive one. Right? Now, another thing that you need to examine now here is, when we talk about examining the speech, first you need to examine the object towards which you are using the speech. Now that means if there are many people there, then Atisha advises, if there are many people there, then it's better you remain silent. I mean, this is such a good teaching. And if there are people who are devoted and faithful, then it's good you speak, share good things. And if there are people who are really learned, and then praise them. If they're people who are really disciplined, then you should praise their great sense of discipline. And if you find really kind-hearted people, then talk about practices. They'll appreciate it, and you will learn from them. And if you see very sinful, negative people, then you should gently avoid them. Gently avoid them, or deal with them in a manner appropriate to them. Right? Because what he is saying is, even if your motivation is good, you cannot change other people like that, you see. You need to be very kind of diplomatic or very skillful, right? But whatever you're going to say, it's really going to be a positive counter force, then you can speak that out. Otherwise, you should restrain all this force of the speech. Second, when you speak to others, first, do not let the word come out from your mouth. Just hold it at the throat. You're thinking, you're thinking to say something, but before letting it go out, just hold it in the throat. Just hold it in the throat. Nothing. Then think what I'm going to speak. Is there any expectation? By saying this, I'm expecting something from somebody or not expecting anything? Whether there is attachment or hatred or not, whether there's clinging to personal benefit and profit, whether it's related to scolding and defaming others or not, whether it's whether it's going to be an idle gossip or not, or lying or not, divisive talk or not, or are you going to make a sarcastic remark or not, whether it's going to harm other people directly or indirectly, whether the word you're going to use is that of a Arya or learned one or ordinary talking, whether what you plan to talk is meaningful or meaningless. So then through that kind of examination, if you find that what you're planning to speak is right, then let it come out from your mouth and say it. But if you think that this speech that you're about to talk about is polluted with many of these concerns and negative emotions, then just imagine this speech that you're planning to speak should be dissolved into the letter syllable ah, and then disappears. It doesn't come out from your mouth. And not only that, let us say if you're somebody who's very fond of doing your regular prayers, right? But if you do that prayer loudly in front of somebody who is doing meditation, concentration, even that is improper because you are disturbing other people. Or if you do that practice in front of somebody who is very fond of belittling everything, that's improper. Or if you praise the Mahayana practice in front of somebody who doesn't like the teaching at all, it's wrong. So don't share those teachings in front of those people who have no faith. Then also in terms of your showing respect to your Lama, to your abbats and things like that, you may have great faith, great respect to them. But if you are with somebody who is full of attachment and hatred, then in front of this person, don't praise your Lama or your abbat, because by doing that, this person will again develop his hatred, attachment, and things like that. So therefore, when you find that that other person is an improper, vessel, then don't declare many of these secret practices. So in short, until and unless you have clairvoyance, if you have clairvoyance, then of course you will know properly whether what you're going to speak is going to help others or not others. So until you have actualized clairvoyance, it is primarily important to restrain your speech, especially when you're among many people, right? Because it is this speech which destroys many of your virtuous practices. So therefore, he tells Domtomba to examine his speech, and instead of using negative speech, use the word, use recitation, and so forth. And even if you hear words of unpleasant words and words of hatred, then you should remain as if you are dumb. You have lost your speech. So for a proper Dharma practitioner, many a times it is important that you are blind and dumb, right? We are very ordinary people, so we see too many things. And when we see too many things, we then started talking about many of these things as if you have great information. And then, someone says something else, then there is a disagreement. Unnecessarily, you argue and things like that. So it is not useful at all. So therefore, just watch and remain as if you're blind and deaf, as if somebody is saying something to a tree, right? That's important. That is important. Very, very important. In other words, what he's saying is that you should observe your way of life in such a way that the external environment and the people, however bad, however nasty they may not be able to put a negative impact on your life. So that's why the Buddha said, self is the protector of the self. No one else can be the protector. Right? So that's why I cited this quotation from somebody where it is said that before I was intelligent, so I planned to change the world. But now I'm wise, so I've started changing myself. That's the only way to change the world also. Right? So therefore, it's important to develop a way of life where your body, speech, and mind contributes to the well-being and happiness of others. And then having listened to this, now Dhamma again requests Atisha that you are really the Lord of speech. Somebody whose speech is not tainted with any negative emotions. Kindly listen to me, you the supreme teacher. What you have so far said is a wonderful advice to many of us, or to many people. Now can you please give me another summary or essence point of practice which one can practice when one is alone, not with other people or many people, but when one is alone, so that one can remain in a place of solitude and isolation and do these practices. So as an answer to this, then Atisha says, when you're alone, watch your mind. When you're alone, watch your mind. I have elsewhere read a text which says, when you're among many people, watch your mouth. Chikpur lak, when you're alone, watch your hand. Always watch your mind. There's also another way of putting. And then when you're among many people, watch your mouth. This is similar what we have already studied here. And then the second one, when you're alone, watch your hand. That means, for example, if you are in the house of somebody alone, and then the house members, they may have gone to the kitchen to serve you tea or cooking something, and you're alone sitting there. Then sometimes there may be a risk of stealing something. So even if you don't steal, out of curiosity, if you touch that beautiful cup or glass lying there, and unfortunately, if that beautiful cup or glass slips from your hand and it breaks into pieces, that will be again a big tragedy, shame, you see. So therefore, watch your hand. Watch your hand. It's very important. I mean, these are all taught not only in the text, but this pandemic is teaching us, watch your mouth. Masking up. Masking up. Washing your hand. See? Watch your hand. And the other day I was reading a text, Buddhist text, which says these two hands, it's very interesting and will be very useful during the pandemic also. It says these two hands symbolizes the method and wisdom. The method and wisdom must go together. And as an example to this, the text says, when you want to remove the dirt of the two hands, both the hands must wash together, helping each other to remove the dust. It's a beautiful example. Luckily, I've found reading in a text, which is very, very appropriate during this pandemic also, you see. So when you wash your two hands, it's not only, removing the virus, but also you're cultivating the method and wisdom, remembering about the need to combine the practice of method and wisdom together. So these are all like, truth is truth. That's the beauty of the Buddha's teaching. And the Buddha's teaching based on the true noble truth or true truths, conventional truth, ultimate truth. So basically it's based on the law of nature. Law of nature will always be whatever it is. You cannot cheat it. Impermanence will be impermanence. Suffering will be suffering, right? It will be there. Death will be death. It will be there. So what is important for us is to understand this law of nature and accept it. Don't pretend that you're not good, not impermanent, you're not going to die, you're not going to live forever. You repeat this 100,000 times, pretend that you're permanent, it will never be permanent. You can't change it, right? You can't change it. Therefore, it is important to accept the reality. So therefore, when you're alone, watch your mind. And when you talk about watching the mind, the important thing is if there is no mind, then there will be nothing that will perceive the object. And when the mind doesn't go into the object, then there's no question of developing attachment, anger, hatred, and so forth, right? But then because of this, now you find out, okay, it is the mind. So what is the foundation of the mind? Whether the mind has intrinsic independent existence or not. In the Buddhist schools of thought, even the Chitta Matras, the mind-only schools, they refute, external existence. But they say the mind has true existence. And then when you move into the Madhyamika school, then they say mind, like any other phenomena, also has no inherent independent existence. So that's what he's discussing here. The mind, the so-called mind, also has no intrinsic independent existence. Many different things may appear to the mind, right? The only problem is the mind tends to run after all objects, desirable object, undesirable object, So therefore, one very important teaching that is being taught in Dzogchen is just let the things arise and disappear. Don't chase the object. Don't run after the object. That is what has been discussed, right? So therefore, now it's time to analyze the mind, examine the mind, from where the mind came from. What is the nature of the mind right now? From where the mind is going to go, right? So it is like the electricity, the electric current in the electric wire. Our body is like that electric wire, which we can see. But can we see the current? We can also see the wire, but the current running through the wire, we don't see. But our not being able to see doesn't mean the current is not there. If you touch it, you will know it is there. It will give you a jolt, right? So similarly, and then of course, the clear indication that the current is there is if you switch on the button, the switch on button, the light will be on. There will be light in the room, right? But then if you analyze from where it came from, what is the present nature, how far the mind is continuing to go, then you won't find any concrete, solid mind which you can pinpoint your finger and say, this is the mind, right? As one very important Indian Buddhist master, Guhya Garbha, he said, in whichever of the 6 realms you are born, this inborn natural awareness, the mind, which is like a queen, is really, really powerful. Really powerful. And then he explains the nature of the mind by saying, the mind is really like a monkey in a house, or it's like the lightning in the sky, or it's like the cloud which comes and goes, right? Then you can also, when the mind goes towards a particular object, let us say physical form, then how does the mind look? What is its nature? Whether it has a shape or color. Similarly, when the mind goes after sound, the mind goes after the sound, but whether the mind itself has, like when the mind goes after the physical form, it's going after the physical form. But in the case of mind itself, has it any shape, color, physical form? You won't find it. Similarly, when the mind goes after the sound, the mind itself doesn't have that sound. Similarly, when it goes to the taste, and so forth, towards all the sensual objects. So therefore, you will find that mind is basically a conceptually fabricated thing. But then you also examine that conception, that conceptuality, right? Then it will disappear like the rainbow, as we already discussed. And when you don't find that mind through repeated search, then you are actually seeing the nature of the mind. You are really seeing the nature of the mind. So in order to see that mind, you need to also accumulate some merit by doing the 7-limb practice and so forth. We discussed about this earlier. So to summarize this topic, we are basically talking about 2 examinations. That is, when you are among many people, examine your speech. When you are alone, examine your mind. So in these 2 auspicious examinations, everything will fall onto that. So this completes the 23rd chapter. So this text is composed by Atisha himself. So that's it. Finish much earlier, or where are we?
Now we still have 7 precious minutes.
7 precious
Can
minutes.
continue.
Yeah. So this time we have completed our discussion and talk. As I have always been saying, it is not enough just to have, one lunch or one breakfast or one dinner. We need to eat regularly. So similarly, in the case of this spiritual food also, we need to really read and think regularly, and more importantly, practice as much as possible. Because life is short and we have no idea how long we are going to live. So therefore, make this human life meaningful. So living is not just breathing. Living means that you are helping and benefiting many other suffering sentient beings. And that is actually the essence of the Buddha's teaching, as much as possible. Because if you do that, then even when you die, people will remember you. There is something that will remain almost like, immortal. But as somebody, correctly said, what you do for yourself gets lost quickly, but what you do for others remains immortal. Many people get benefit from it, like what the Buddha did more than 2,500 years ago. What he did. And because of that altruistic, teaching, and because of his insight into the way things are, he used to, the other day I was reading a book, a story of the Buddha, and it said that he walks almost like 25 kilometers every day from one village to another village, from one place to another place, sharing his teaching, helping other people, things like that. So I saw a similarity with His Holiness also. His Holiness also used to travel much. Not because he fancies moving into different restaurants or hotels and seeing different places. He hardly sees any place properly because he's always attending conferences, talks, teachings, and then sleeping, and next day the same routine. So I had this first-hand experience with him, you see. So he's not going to different countries as a tourist, but he really goes around trying to help, people and raise their spirit and raise their integrity, raise their self-confidence, things like that. It made so many changes in the mind of the people. It really has brought so many changes, much more than what many, short-sighted leaders are doing through force, right? So what you achieve through that way is much more long-lasting. Because it is, the good news, I always call this, in Buddhism we call it Buddha nature, but I prefer using the word good news is that if you look closely, I'm really amazed with the goodness in the mind of everybody, rich or poor, or even very desperate poor people. Basically they have this willingness to do something good, not to unnecessarily tell lie. This is there. Out of necessity, they may be like sleeping and they may be like doing something negative, but deep down, they expect something. They expect to live. They expect to be happy. They expect that things change. I saw this clearly everywhere. That's great news. That's good news. That's really good news. Because the wish to have happiness, all of us. I started the teaching by saying we all want happiness. And nobody can deny that. Not only we want happiness, we want a long-lasting happiness. So this, right from the birth, having this long-lasting wish to have happiness is good news. This itself shows that if you make that attempt in the right direction, you have the capacity to get that long-lasting happiness. Nature is telling you that you came into this world with the slogan that I want long-lasting happiness. Why you made this slogan? Nobody asked you to make that slogan. It's there with you. That longing is there with you. So that longing shows you have the capacity. In Buddhism, we call it Buddha nature. You have the capacity. The only problem is you have this longing, but you are not making an attempt to fulfill that longing, that wish. You silence that wish, that longing, by running after ephemeral, seemingly glamorous things. You run after these things, and then you get sidetracked. So that's why if you read texts like Maitreya's Sutra Alamkara or Uttara Tantra, it speaks about the Buddha nature, something like a treasure hidden underground. It is there, the treasure is there. The only thing is you need to excavate a little bit and remove the dust over that hidden treasure. And once you're able to do it, it is there, the treasure is there. So many wonderful examples are given in those texts about the presence of Buddha nature in us. It's just like another example is just like a butter lamp that is lit in a pot. When that pot is sealed or covered, you may not see the light. Inside it is there light, but when you remove that cover, you can see the light shining out. So we have this capacity, and I am not interested just citing the quotation, but what I'm telling you is through first-hand experience. Not just me, but all of us have that. You see carefully, you observe other people. Basically, they have much more goodness than badness. And the badness that you see around are mostly environmental result, the result of the surrounding in which people are living. You see, there is a discrimination, there is a lack of showing compassion and things like that. So people are like carried away this short-sightedness and the lure of ephemeral things. But if you really see it, there are many poor, extremely poor people still trying to be very honest. Majority, I'm saying. Yes, among this majority of population, you will here and there find one of people who will be like, who will appear as if they're completely incorrigible. Those things sometimes we see, but I'm talking about the majority of the people. And His Holiness has given this example by saying that we should never lose hope, even if some nasty things or bad things are happening, in big cities and things like that. And he said that, for example, even in the big city like New Delhi, in a day, how many people are killed in a normal day? Maybe just few. But how many are nurtured, looked after in a hospital? How many are looked after by the mother, families? Countless, millions are looked after. So that shows the goodness of people. And then why so much is coming in the news? Because whatever is against human nature becomes news. Bloodletting, for example, if you bloodshed somebody, that's against human nature, it will become news. But about mother showing love and compassion to the children, it will never become news because it is something people take it for granted that we should do. So that is it. This is something we all say. Somewhere I discussed, a long time back during the Aristotle and Plato period, they discussed about whether it is important to teach ethics or not. There was a big debate. This debate arose because most of the people thought ethics is something that people will naturally do. No need to teach it, you see. So the point is we really have this goodness there. And you can say it, I can say it with first-hand experience. So that's good news. So therefore what we are trying to do through Buddhist practice is to let that Buddha nature shine out by being kind, by being nice, you see. As I said, it depends on the surrounding, If you really change the surrounding a little bit, people to really get transformed. And so that's why proper education to the younger generation is the most important thing. Because in the future, the world leaders have to come from these young people. And we should really teach those values and good things to the younger generation so that they're able to live happily and harmoniously. So that will be the greatest gift that we are going to give to the younger generation. Not just concrete buildings and things like that, right? So therefore, these are the important points that we are discussing while we study such important text by Atisha and so forth. So therefore, it's not only in the Buddhist text, as His Holiness was saying, that in many of the ancient Indian tradition, in those days, people really great thinkers, they had the time and they had the patience. So they spent like whole life thinking about the law of nature and the good of everybody, you see. So the wisdom heritage that they left is a precious mine, which we must once again explore and share it and make it available to everybody. So it was my great pleasure to be able to read this text. And I would like to thank His Holiness's Foundation for Universal Responsibility, Rajivla, Nonjinla, and Sri Namjila, and everybody who's involved. And then I would also like to thank all the listeners. I'm unable to see all of you, whoever is there, but I'm definite there are a number of people who are listening. And I also personally received a few letters from some of them appreciating the talk and that they benefited, which is my pleasure because you have given me opportunity to collect a little bit of merit. So I would like to thank all of you. All right, so I stop talking here. As Atisha says, don't speak too much.
That's so, Gishla. Thank you so much. I hope your words remain permanently imprinted in our impermanent minds. And with that, I would like to open the floor for discussion questions now. I have Nili appearing first. Neeli, please ask your question.
Oh, hi, hello. I just wanted to ask something. If we really say that, all phenomena, we can treat them as, rainbow, as you said, or dream or illusion in various ways. So from where would really come, I would say, the motivation or the source to do any activity, or in any, or to do artifact or teaching or anything in one way or another? Because if we say the things are really dynamic and it will change anyway, so you can do it in one way or another because it doesn't really matter. I mean, and we are aware in any profession that things really change according to circumstances and needs and stuff like that. So there is there is a bit of a contradiction, So I was wondering how to deal with this question.
Yeah, you asked these questions earlier also. I remember very well. More or less, you asked this question earlier also. So,
I'm debating with
but my answer will be on many levels. This is a little bit complex issue, because what kind of response you should give depends upon what level of your spiritual practice is. There are highly advanced spiritual practitioners like Milarepa. He's not interested in art and carpentry and all those things. These are of no importance to him at all. So there's very high level. You don't need this. Then on a much more lower level, let us say our own ordinary level, then our own ordinary level, we talk about the two truths, conventional truth and the ultimate truth. Conventional truth is the means and ultimate truth is what you get from those means. So that means we cannot suddenly jump into the ultimate truth. Even though things are like illusion, you cannot suddenly say, oh, everything is illusion, I will not stop eating, No, right? So because so in the realm of conventional truth, we need to eat, No, the problem here is normally to our ordinary mind, we tend to think that if the art you make or the people you love, if they are not permanent, then if they are changing, if they are like rainbow, then what is the fun of making love with this person? What is the fun of creating this art? That's what we tend to think, you see. So that's, I think, big wrong understanding. Wrong understanding. In fact, the beauty is there because it's changing, not because it is permanent. Because of its capacity to change, it can benefit many people. Like, for example, the person you love, if that person is permanent, not like rainbow, never changing. I mean, imagine if there is a person who never changes, who never smiles. Never changes means never smiles, right?
So,
Right. So imagine, So then there's no need for you to love that person, Or there's in fact no hurry to love that person because he'll be there all the time until you get completely bored. Now, the beauty of love is there because that person is changing. Number one, with his changing, there will be changing expressions, beautiful things, beautiful qualities. That person is going to develop qualities which he has never had before. He's reacting different things, learning different things. That beauty is there's a growth. Just like flower, you see. Right? And then secondly, because that person is changing to the extent that person will die one day, because of this, you must love this person then. And loving that person also not tomorrow, day after tomorrow, right now.
yeah,
Because tomorrow that person will be there or not there, it's not sure. So don't worry about whether it's there or not. But right now you love that person, you see. This is the moment.
So the moment is not a rainbow.
Moment is rainbow. Like, for example, the best example that you can get is dream. The dream that you get in the night is changing all the time. But even that dream can affect your emotion. If you get bad dream, you get nightmare. If you get good dream, you even laugh while you are sleeping, you see. So anything changing or anything like rainbow doesn't mean they are not there. Rainbow is there. Rainbow is there. When people when they see the rainbow, they feel happy, you know, they take photos. So the fact that it is changing doesn't mean that it is not there. So therefore your art is there, your beauty is there, your sculpture is there, you know, these are there. But what we are saying is these are there. We are not saying that they are not there. These are there, but don't grasp onto them, because they don't exist as you think. Because we tend to think not only the rainbow is there, but because it is beautiful, we tend to think that the rainbow is there forever. It exists from its own side. And we develop grasping and clinging. That brings problem. Rainbow is not the problem. The nature of rainbow is not the problem. The problem is how you perceive these things. Right?
Yeah.
So in fact, the way to get freedom is not to get stuck anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Something like that. But we need to think more and more.
Yeah. Well, I just want to sum up really personally. I want to say that really your teaching are much beyond words. And
Yeah, thank you. I received your letter, beautiful letter. Thank you.
And if you can suggest it,
Rajiv and both of us read your letter. Thank you. Yeah.
No. But if you can suggest, any other platforms that you will be teaching in the near future, I think everybody will be very happy. So
I'll let you know. I'll let you know.
So really, thank you, and just be safe.
My pleasure. Yeah. Shalom. Shalom. Yeah.
Thank you, Nili. Thank you so much, Geshe. We have questions from 2 more people. So I'll request Dinara to ask her question now.
Thank you very much, Geshe. My question is, really is very difficult to keep silence in the society, because the people like discuss about these problems, about these opinions, but how to be in this case when people want to speak with me.
Your voice is breaking.
Oh, sorry. Repeat again.
Yeah.
It's very difficult to keep silence in the society, because the people like speak about his problems, about his opinions. Really, the people like speak. How to be in this case? No.
Yeah, you said it is difficult, but you did not say it is impossible. It may be difficult, but it is possible, you know. So I'm not also saying that remain complete silent, you know? But what we read, dealt with the fact that as much as possible restrain your speech and make sure that you're not hurting anybody, make sure that you're not unnecessarily gossiping, wasting time and getting distracted. So that is the key. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you, Dinara. Thank you, Geshe, once again. Now we have some questions from our friends in Russia. Natasha, will you please?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Geshe, for your precious teachings. We are very, very happy. And we also would like to join Nili in her request to know when your next teachings will be, and we will be very happy to join. And we have 2 questions today. The first one, when we dedicate merit to a person, how is this merit transferred to this person, in fact?
So that actually I discussed earlier, that the person to whom you dedicate your merit should be somebody with whom you should have either relation in terms of spiritual practice or in terms of sharing the wealth, things like that. If you don't have that connection, then it is difficult to benefit that person, because it is in accordance with the system of Buddha's teaching that the merit will be earned by one's own practice and doing. Nobody can do that practice for you. So generally speaking, how you fare well in this life or in the future life is very much dependent upon how you live your life, how you sincerely practice. That's most important. Not somebody, dedicating or doing some things for you. But as we already read, but if that person who is dedicating the merit on your behalf, or somebody who is dead for the benefit of that person, but so in between these two persons, one who is dead or gone and one who is dedicating the merit, if they have spiritual connection, if they have connection in terms of the family relation, they have connection in terms of sharing the wealth, then in that case it will benefit.
Thank you very much. And the second question is, Geshe-la, when we live with our family, we need to find time to accommodate their requests. And how then not to feel the disconnection between the practice and daily life? How to transform helping others into the Dharma practice?
We need to make a fine line between these two. Generally speaking, if you are not grounded in your spiritual practice, it is not easy to help everybody. So it is important to get grounded, to really be able to maintain healthy relation and still not disrupt one's spiritual practice. That's important. And the second thing is, even maintaining a healthy relation with your relatives and family members itself can be counted as a Buddhist practice, right? Because we are talking about helping all sentient beings. So as I always say, think globally, act locally. It's easy to talk about helping all sentient beings. First, you must be good with your family members. If you're nasty with your husband and wife and then talking about global peace, this is just a joke, you see. So think globally, act locally. That's the thing. So maintaining a good relationship with your family members is a good thing. But at the same time, you need to take your own stand so that you also get your time to do the spiritual practice, and especially not to go in the line of doing unhelpful or negative things. So it's not easy, not very easy, because in many cases the family members will be very demanding, because they know how to live the ordinary life. They don't know anything about spiritual practice, you see. So I've met many people who family, the fathers and the parents, they are very worried about the marriage of their son or daughter, and then getting a job and earning money. That's the primary concern, you see. That's understandable to some extent. This is the way the world lives, right? But so therefore you cannot right away say, oh, I've suddenly become Buddhist and I've become almost like Milarepa, so I have nothing to do with you. Many people do that. That I think is not healthy. That I think is not healthy. In order to change others, you need to, as much as possible, in a positive sense, live with others, help with others, and show that you are also able to do the worldly things perfectly well like others, right? It's not that you are somebody who has lost the battle with the ordinary world and then as an excuse you talk about a spiritual practice. I've seen a number of people like that, you see. They are neither good here nor good there. Then they say, oh, I'm going to do spiritual practice, which is just a lame excuse, So don't do that. Don't do that. Lead a normal human life. That I would say. Lead a normal human life, a sensible human life. Sensible human life means that even if you want to benefit your relatives and family members and things like that, the best way of helping them is not just giving money, but giving them hope, giving them sense of integrity, things like that. And that in the long run will help everybody, right? So I mean, there are a number of things to think about, yeah.
Geshe-la, thank you very much. And if I may, we just received one more question from our audience on YouTube. If I may ask this one. When I do something bad, I accumulate negative karma, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how to correct this negative karma? And the second part of the question, is there such a thing as a karma of a family?
Yes. We talk about individual karma and collective karma. So the collective karma may be collective karma of the family, collective karma of the society, collective karma of the nation, and things like that. It is there. But individually, when you commit a negative deed, then the question is what you should do. It's like somebody taking the poison. If you had taken poison, what would you do? You would immediately like try to vomit it out, or immediately go to the hospital to take the treatment. So if you're a good practitioner, then it has to be something like that you should immediately regret that this was a bad deed. And then most important thing is that you should take a commitment saying that I will never repeat this again, and don't repeat it. And then you can also, in front of some holy statues or Buddha images, regret and then cultivate bodhicitta, and meditate on shunyata, that nothing has inherent existence. So there are many things like that you should do. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Geshe. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Natasha. Geshe, we have one more question from Vivek. Hi, Vivek, you can ask your question. I've sent you unmute request.
Thank you, Geshe. The question I'd like to ask is, why do humans sometimes find pleasure in hurting others? There must be some source of such pleasure in exerting power and hurting others. And what is the source of that pleasure? Because that then leads to all the problems in the world.
The source, scientifically speaking, I would say that human beings are not so different from animals in the beginning, right? So if you look at how the animals live their life, they just pounce upon each other, hurting each other to get their share of food and things like that. They don't have much capacity to think about the long-term future, long-term happiness, things like that. So we have inherited that part according to science. So therefore we continue to behave like animals many a times. But then luckily we have this huge human capacity to think and to transform and to change. So provided if we make an effort, we can change that. But otherwise, many of these habits are really like the habits that we inherited a long time back. So many of these die habits, I'm now speaking it from the scientific point of view. So it is there. Okay.
Yes, so thank you, Vivek. Thank you, Geshe. Now it's very difficult to say thank you this time, Geshe, because now if I have to say thank you, of course I do, but then I want to add, please continue.
Okay.
Looks like we don't have any more questions now, Geshe. And now this is the very difficult moment to wrap up this weekly virtual teachings, the first part of it, I hope. And what do I say now, Geshe? Really, when I wish to say, please continue, I also remember that many times over during these sessions, you have mentioned that there are three practices of studying, three methods of studying, that is to hear and to contemplate and then to make it a practice. So I think this is really your way of indicating us to now meditate and contemplate and practice.
Yes, absolutely.
So thank you so much, Geshe. Truly, we are so very fortunate that we got this opportunity. And I have a list of people to thank now, and I would like to do that. Okay. So Geshe, thank you so much, first of all. And also thank you to all the people here who have formed this beautiful fellowship now. And please remember that it is your registering to this teaching sessions that enabled many other people to attend these sessions. We run this live on Facebook. So it is due to your registering to these teachings. So thank you so much for making this beautiful Sangha. And I would also like to thank our team led by Mr. Mehrotra. So we put in this effort, and we really are grateful to Mr. Mehrotra's vision and willingness to carry these teachings on. So thank you so much to our own team. And now that I mentioned Mr. Mehrotra, I would like to invite Mr. Mehrotra, Mr. Rajiv Mehrotra, our foundation's secretary and managing trustee, to share a few words. Thank you.
Well, I feel very overwhelmed. As I was telling Geshe Lhakdor just before this started, I said at one level, I mean, his teachings have completely failed to impact me because I still feel a great deal of attachment to him and I don't want to let him go. And so actually it's my failure, not his. And I was just sort of, how do I put it, on behalf of all of us, saying that we're not going to let you go. And he said, well, give it a little time. So I really just wanted to say that we will be writing to you and we're not going to let him go easily, and seeking your suggestions. I mean, we'll be kind and generous, inspired by Geshe Lhakdor, and give him a break from us for a few weeks, a month or two maybe. But I mean, what can I say? It has been such an overwhelming time, and particularly through many a dark night of the soul during the peak of the COVID experience. And this has been such an important anchor. I know I'm using all these phrases which we are being trained to shed, but I mean, I'm speaking for myself. I'm afraid I'm in human form, and I was also telling him that I don't expect to get very far in this life. So I'm cheating and I'm counting on the next life to catch up on the Dharma. Well, Geshe Lhakdor, we've had 50, 60 people, through this 6-month period, and there are that many full hearts, that speak for themselves. And I mean, I think it comes from, true gratitude and appreciation and devotion to the teacher. And you have given us so generously of yourself and your time. And I know that, despite your wisdom, you work hard at the teachings, give of yourself so generously. And so I'm really just out of words, and I'm feeling a little sentimental and emotional. So I will just let go, as you would recommend. And thank you, Norzin, actually, for having anchored this and worked so hard. And, we've all had our personal, professional, struggled in these very challenging times. And I really have to celebrate her and our, wonderful, strong and silent Sering, Namgyal, who's handled the back end, and in the early days, Diksha Poddar and some other people. So just with a lot of love, a lot of gratitude for each one of you who I see on the screen, and those that I don't, and those that had to go away for other places. One of the sort of, how to put it, the most important missing elements in our lives has been the Sangha, because you can, the Buddha, the teachings can be accessed through books, and if you're blessed by, teachers like Geshe Lhakdor. But I think we're increasingly missing an authentic, genuine Sangha, which is so very important. And so we will be looking at ways to try and see how we can foster this Sangha, certainly at least between now and when Geshe Lhakdor decides to come back. So if you have any ideas and suggestions, we don't want to impose on you and say, no, we're going to do this, or I'm going to, or you must. But if there are any thoughts you really want to respond to this, and I think the ultimate gesture of gratitude to the Guru and the teacher is really to follow through with our own personal and collective initiatives to practice. And I know his Geshe Lhakdor says it, but not in the same words. That I know that His Holiness, whenever I see him, even if it's for 30 seconds, would always say, practice, practice, practice. And that is what we need to do as the final gesture of gratitude and to honor you, Geshe Lhakdor. Stay well. And I mean, we're nobody to say stay blessed, but stay well. Our prayers, love, and thoughts are with you. And even though you have often dismissed the idea of blessings, but we need your blessings too, I'm afraid. And so goodbye, and not goodbye, because we're going to connect and meet again together in the coming months. So good luck, everybody. Lots of prayers, lots of happiness, and let's be here for each other and with Geshe Lhakdor. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much, Geshe Lhakdor. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Hopefully see you soon. Bye-bye. Take care, everyone. Sering's screen has frozen, I think. So it says screen sharing. Yeah. Take care, be well.